Joe Streeter, the news editor of Payment Expert, for the debut episode of PAC Leaders, Payment and Compliance Leaders, bringing together some industry experts to discuss the latest goings on and, just round up the news, really. And we start with a real special episode. We're faced with the daunting task of looking back on 2020 and the year that was. And it's my great pleasure to be joined by two really expert guests. Andrea, how are you doing? You okay?
I'm doing well. Yeah, my little tier 4 in the UK, little cubby hole again, not back at work. Yeah.
And if you can just tell us a little bit about your role. I'm sure the SBC audience has seen you and heard from you before, but just a little bit about your role and what you do.
Yeah, I'm it's a lovely title of the Chief Commercial Officer, but I run the commercial side of things for NeoSurf, the payment method, which is literally the local payment method around a whole load of different countries, 68 countries. And my responsibilities, we've got salespeople, selling to people like Isabel. We've got distribution people who are bringing in local payment solutions, got marketing, got compliance, got support, got a lot of things. So NeoSurf is a French-based company, but anything that's to do with commercial now comes out of the UK office. And it's a very fast-growing pace and people. We've doubled our staff in this year. We employed people in the middle of all this COVID stuff. We're trying to keep up. And that's what we do.
So French-UK relations, very much topical today, I guess. It's NeoSurf.
But this is obviously going out at the point of, So at the moment, it's either Brexit fishing territories at the day that we're recording this, or a variant of the virus that now all the trucks and nobody can get in or out of the country. And we've all been told that we can't be with each other at Christmas if you're in the biggest tier, which I am. So we're home down. It's a bit like a lockdown, but a bit slightly different. But we're keeping on working. It's a bit of an interesting time.
Yeah, but very interesting time. And I hope your Christmas hasn't been too hampered by Tier 4, the newly formed Tier 4.
No. My food is ordered. I'm collecting that on Wednesday. I've got enough alcohol. My dogs are happy. There's enough logs for the fire, which is not your issue, Isabel. You don't have logs and a fire issue, but we'll be absolutely fine.
Brilliant. And Isabel, how are you doing? You okay?
We're good. Curacao is actually, I was saying it's perfect right now. So if you're going to be sort of locked down at home, the days are sunny, but not too hot. The nights are cool, but not too cold. And we're still allowed out. There's not much to do. You can't, you can go to restaurants, but there's no alcohol being served. That's just because they don't want people getting into drunken brawls and drunk driving. I'm actually in the office with the air conditioning, which is the way I prefer it. And we're, the island's as much on lockdown as an island that sort of relies on tourism can be, and we're still able to do stuff. I think the biggest disappointment for us this year is that we won't have as many fireworks shows as we usually do for New Year's. So, and we can't have big Christmas dinners and gatherings and stuff. So there's still an impact, but it's more of the same, being careful, being, not being out and about too much, wearing your masks when you are, that kind of thing. So we're a bit luckier than London right now.
Yeah, I don't think there are many places that are less lucky than London right now, if I'm being honest. No, yeah. And the proudly emblazoned Pinnacle logo in the background, just tell us a little bit more about your role at Pinnacle.
Well, the Pinnacle logo is to try and hide my junk on the back wall. I've been with Pinnacle now since...
I should have thought of that.
Yeah, I have a lot of joke posters in the back, so anytime I'm on camera, I stick that up. I've been with Pinnacle now since 2006 as head of payments. We cater to a global market, regulated and unregulated markets. And so it keeps me busy and challenged, never get bored. Working closely with Andrea in some cases, and lots of different companies. This year has been an entertaining challenge. It's definitely been one of the more unique years in since I started in 2002. When I was 12.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's interesting because
Everybody
we have the two different perspectives here, and I just wondered if you could both sort of say a little bit about how the pandemic and the shifts in consumer habits have forced you to adapt and have forced you to navigate it. If best you can, obviously, there's been a plethora of challenges, but yeah, I just wondered from your perspective, from the perspective of your companies a little bit.
Well, I think we've been a bit
Who
lucky.
wants to shoot first, Isabel?
Yeah, I'll go. We've been a bit lucky. I think that the companies where they have betting shops, because we're all online, for us, there wasn't a shift in that sense. You'll find the bigger challenge was obviously for the people who had betting shops who, were used to sort of that live presence. And those companies would have been much more differently impacted as their customers moved online. We've always just had an online presence, so our biggest shift was sort of making sure we had enough laptops for people to work from home, and making sure that everybody's internet access and all of that was sort of worked out. With regards to payments, again, they were all online, so a large amount of that, if anything, it's been a little bit of a blessing to the company, because you find that so many people who maybe weren't comfortable with sort of that online presence and doing things online and putting their card information or making financial transactions online, this year has forced a large majority of players to sort of shift their mental focus and be like, oh, well, I do it online or I don't. And so that's really been the difference, has been that the customer base has actually grown and become more familiar and more comfortable with cryptocurrency has taken a shift.
Wow.
Just different things where before I don't think that the market would have moved as quickly in that sense. It's definitely taken a quicker shift for us at any rate. That's kind of what I'm looking at.
And forward thinking, do you think that so when things are sort of back to normal and retail shops and betting retail is fully up and running again, do you think you will retain some of that consumer base that you've gained, or?
I think we will, but I think that also comes down to the customer experience. Now, for us, it's a little different because we don't have a UK presence, and most of there's a large amount of betting shops in the UK. Anytime I think betting shops, I think UK, which isn't correct. But I do think that there is a large amount of customers who have switched over and their behavior has changed. But the betting shop is a different experience. It's a social experience as well as. So I think it very much depends on how much we've made that online experience comfortable for them, and it's at Pinnacle or any company. It's how well a job have we done at making people really like it versus wanting to go. And I think they may retain. You may have both. But I can't see the people who like to go to the betting shop to have that banter, to have that experience. I don't think they're going to completely just stop going. I think they could be quite happy when it reopens. Whether or not they do more of a mix on their actual wagering would be the question.
Yeah, that's interesting. And Andrea, before I ask you to explain a little bit about how NeoSurf has navigated this period, just wondered, we speak about the betting shop experience. If you've been in a betting shop recently, because I sort of went in just before the weekend, and it is crazy. Like the whole social experience of it has been taken away. And the TVs are off to show in live racing. I think as soon as you get in there, you give your name, and the countdown is, I think it's 15 minutes to get in there now. It's really crazy. That whole, you may as well bet online, because that whole social impact, that the whole social experience has gone.
Yeah, no, I'll have to admit I've not been in a betting shop recently. I have to be honest and say that my granddad used to run a betting shop back in Liverpool days, but that's a long, long time ago. No, I've not been in one, but it doesn't surprise me, because it's the same in hospitality. It's the same in general retail, and the adjustments that people are making. It's interesting that if you want to be making the adjustments and it's something that you want to do, then you'll do it. And the gamblers are. So in other countries, it's land-based casino. And if the casino shuts, the online casino volume just shoots up. And then I think I'm really looking forward to using that. I'm a bit of a data junkie. And I know, Isabel, you like your data as well. Is that it's going to be interesting to see who what the pattern is a casino shut, therefore I'm going to do this. The betting shop is shut, or it's not the experience I wanted, therefore I'm going to do this. And will I now retain, or will I be doing more of both? And how that adjusts to what that customer experience. I think this user experience piece is the one that will win or not. It happens that Isabel and I have been working on a little thing ourselves about talking about user experience and how the customer actually is seeing stuff. When you're online, you've got a chance to capture and get people to win, not literally, I mean, win them over in that experience. And it's going to become more complicated for ours as a payment method, and we've released a new user experience this year, or the operators on the onboarding and keeping them interested. And I'm not talking about promotions. I'm not talking about all that kind of stuff. It's about, is this where I want to be at? I mean, in the UK, I don't remember when they closed most of the bingo halls, and bingo became more online, and the social side of things became very important in the bingo here in the UK. I'm not sure that you're going to get the same kind of thing for the horse racing. I don't think the guy who's putting his money on the horse racing is going to be a chatter like the bingo people, but it's just the concept of what am I doing, when am I doing it, and where will I go to put that bet on the horse? Will I go into the betting shop? Will the betting shop still be there? Because it might be out of the customer's hands. Because I don't know about you, but I walk around and you see more and more boards going up on buildings of hospitality, and shops and businesses are just having to close down, even with government support. So I don't know what will happen with the gambling brands, with the betting shops, and how long they'll keep them going. Yeah. So it's going to be a major adjustment. I think we're going to learn a lot next year. This year's been, we've been reacting this year and trying to keep up this year. Next year is going to be, okay, what are we going to do about that? Because things are adjusting. And so it'll be. I mean, from my side, I'm sitting here saying that we've had 60+% growth this year.
Wow.
So, online is gaining out of this, I have to say.
Well, your company is very much sort of the transition from cash to online. You know, you literally cater to the people who don't usually go online, and you are the first and easiest way for them to go, oh, I can now only do this online, and then they'll buy a NeoSearch voucher and go from there. Whereas that's, that's probably a big reason for you guys having that impact.
Yeah, it is very interesting. And the UK, just as an example, as you're talking with the betting shops, is that, I mean, NeoSurf is a cash payment in the UK where somebody may have a betting shop. We would never be more than 1 or 2% of their volume, because the betting shop was there for the cash. That's not the case this year. And it'll be interesting how much we keep of that. So they still want to use the cash. The shop that we're selling a NeoSurf voucher has been allowed to be open because it sells food. And so people have gone in there, bought a voucher and spent that online. If the betting shops reopen, then will they go back there? But it is interesting. We're not 1 and 2% of sports books that have got the shops this year. But that's not the only contribution to the 60%. Of course, it's different countries as well. It's looking at some of the countries. Is France went into a massive nosedive at the beginning, and whilst lockdown was put in place, you watch the creep up and the creep up. And I would sit and talk to my French colleagues and go, well, which shops have opened? He said the shops that were open before. So he said he put it down to the fear of the French going out, and then eventually going, oh, I can go out, so I will. It was an interesting position. We had about a week of a nosedive, and then it was like a new growth curve that's just gone beyond where it was. And Belgium.
There were also no sporting events. For about 6 weeks, there wasn't a sporting event. So, we were putting up lines on marbles. So.
Yeah, so they were shifting themselves to poker. They were shifting themselves to virtual, and of course, the old esports stuff.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about data, because I know you both love data, and I dare use a cliche, but we have been in unprecedented times. And people have been the habits of people and how they live their lives have just been changed, and will never live another life never live another year like they've lived this one. Does the data become? How do you use the data? Do you And I mean, we're talking there as well about a period where there was no sports, so sports bettors were playing poker. Well, how do you use the data?
I think that's an interesting thing, because you do get a lot of people who are sort of pure data people, and those pure data people, that data is useless. You have to contextualize it. You have to be able to go, okay, in April, this was our volume. Can I use that to forecast next year's April? No. So that's of no value. But also, can I use that to see what did I learn or what, so as long as you don't lose the context of the data. And I think sometimes people have a tendency to just forget why something happened. The data shifts as a result of something. And what you want to get out of that, you have to understand how it came in. I've always had, arguments with people and gone, well, you need to tell me how that happened so that I understand it. And then once I understand what those numbers mean, I can then use that to make an assumption or to make forecasts. But until I know why that happened, it doesn't have any value in that. That's something that you tend to find loses value sometimes when you're speaking to data people. I love them, but context, everything, every decision you make needs to be within some level of context. It'll be very useful, but don't forget why.
We've brought in a new business analyst. Yeah. We've brought a new business analyst in, Isabel. Exactly what you've just said is you see a line go up, you see a line come down, you see some different trends, and it's tell me what that means. Don't just tell me it's gone up. It doesn't mean anything. Why has it gone up, and where's the trend coming from? What's the effect? So we brought in and both a new business analyst and more software, as you would expect. But the process that we've gone through for the second half of this year in starting to understand some things, and then start to be able to predict, not just for us, but for our clients, like you, Isabel, is bringing you some insights of what we've seen and what the player habit is with us. I mean, we're quite we're quite a small part of the payments mix, but on a local basis in the local countries, we're significant, and significant enough that it's actually about seeing what's going on, and does that pattern open and close? And the business analyst goes through and go, when was lockdown in this country? What was lockdown in that city? When did that work? What brand was it? How long? What time of the day? And we could get swamped with some of this data, and that's no use either. But it's looking for things that could be sustainable and useful, and useful for marketing, of course, next year. But it is. And this is just a predictable statement, is even if they're stopped from doing it one way, if they want to put a bet on that horse, or they want to play the bingo, or they want to play poker, they'll find a way if it's available to them. And esports has really, really been fast-tracked. A little bit like I wish I'd put money into Zoom when I thought about it, when we took Zoom in about 18 months ago, and I didn't. But I didn't buy Bitcoin either when that came out, so whatever. So I'm still working. This whole concept of esports, and we sponsor some esports teams, but we did it from the games world. The crossover at the moment is absolutely massive. And it's a whole different audience who are playing those things and watching it. But adding the gambling into esports, I know in the US they would say it's been there for a while, etc. But I find it amazing. I really am. Really amazing. I might just go on mute a second because I'm at home. Isabel, go ahead and talk. The doorbell's about to go, and you're going to hear my dog's barks. I'm going to stop for a second.
No, well, yeah, what Andrea says with esports does make sense. And but I think the interesting thing, and we've had the discussion on it before, is the difference between the esports player and the esports bettor. And it's careful to not confuse them. And it's an interesting thing because anybody who's a big esports fan and they play the games, and they are not necessarily the ones who are playing it, are not necessarily the ones who are betting on it. Some of them are, of course, but you also have it's like you don't have to be a big football player to bet on the football result. So it's interesting to see that that's changing, and really the more the esports get a fan base and coming from outside of their core players who have become fans, you see the bettors also grow and change and evolve. And so I think that helped a lot in 2020 when there were no sporting activities. People started to pay more attention to esports as a whole. And once they started to learn how, they didn't necessarily need to be playing it, once they understood, it's going to sound so simplified, the rules of the game. But once they understood it, they were able to then start wagering on it more and more.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then they use payments.
So this time last year, so Isabel, I'm sure I've told you this story. Literally this last weekend just gone, 1 year ago, I describe it in a gentle way, that I lost a day of my life that I'll never get back. However, it was one of the most amazing days that I learned more than I could ever have done by doing it in one day. I went to Paris to the League of Legends World Championship. Nicholas, who's the CEO of NeoSurf, lives about 15 minutes walk. I had to get a plane at 6 o'clock in the morning, so I would go. Good choice on his side. And I sat in the equivalent of the O2 big auditorium. Everything was in French. And no, French is not a language that I'm really good at, especially if it's loud and fast. Watching a game, which I kind of knew what League of Legends was about, but I had to admit before that day, I had not gone through that. By the end of the 5 games, and it was really thrilling in the end, the noise was crazy. The passion and excitement and style of people, bonkers. The audience, I believe, was bigger than the World Cup, Super Bowl, and some other big international sports event combined across the world. The majority coming from the Asia and China. And live audience was bigger than I think 2 of them. I think maybe the Super Bowl and the World Cup.
Wow.
Don't quote me on that. I know it was massive for me to go, what? Really? Then when you add people following up later, then it was just bigger than anything. And watching, I'm sat in an auditorium, and for me, I'm 57, and I'm watching a game which at that first point, I didn't really understand how it worked, and everybody's shouting in French. So I didn't quite, including the commentators, very loud, and couldn't quite understand it. And they all had these metal balloons knocking on each other. That's all I could hear in my ears. And eventually I realized that I'm sat in an auditorium watching a screen of a game being played with 2 teams of 5 on the middle of the stage, which you can't see them really. By the end of it, and it was a very long session because it was a best of 5, I really came away from that and I choked about, I've lost a day of my life. No, I was completely immersed into what is a massively crazy space, and that was just League of Legends. And that helped us in that sector side. But Isabel, you're absolutely right about that crossover on a player and a gambler. It's not just an easy, oh yeah, 30% of them. Absolutely not. Don't get confused at all. It's a different perspective completely. But I would never place a bet on a League of Legends game, that's for sure. Never. They're hard games by watching them. But
yeah, but it's
the skill set. It's almost like you watch the amazing fan bases. Yeah.
And they are the betters. So it's getting
Enormous.
the fan bases involved. Yeah.
Yeah.
How
Dare I say
We've been working.
Dare I say the live esports experience sounds almost like, I'm not sure if you've ever experienced live darts, but it sounds a little bit similar where the live action,
I have.
You can't see a single thing of, the dart hitting the board. You watch it on a big screen and then you're just sort of there for the experience. Dare I say the darts experience sounds a little bit like a younger person's esports experience. No, an older person's esports experience.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just as loud. Maybe not as much alcohol as there is in darts, but yeah, it's very much, yes. Very vocal, very opinionated, very loud. But all based on passion. And passion for the success as well. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah. To bring it back a little bit. Go on. To bring it back a little bit to payments, I did want to ask you a little bit about how, as we've seen sort of players, whether it be on esports, whether it be on casino, whether it be on darts even, as we've seen players have more time on their hands and change their habits. How have you, I guess this is one more for you, Isabel, how have you had to change the way you approach affordability and assessing what a gambler can afford to bet? And I guess the economic climate adds to that as well.
I will wholeheartedly admit RG is not under my purview. I work very closely with the RG manager to make sure that we're implementing everything properly. Pinnacle has actually this year been it's one of our growth areas. It's one of the areas that we've really made sure that we are addressing as a serious thing. I know that's winners welcome and all of that and all of that, but as far as RG is concerned for Pinnacle, it's become something that is a serious stance that we're taking, and we're doing very well with our Swedish license that we obtained this year. We recognized sort of the importance of it. It is very much something that's more in the regulated market. So again, that's a very UK element. Yeah. Coming up, not exclusive to the UK, however. And I mean, you have to cater to it with good data, being able to assess, and especially with us where we do have a large amount of our players are professional players because of the way Pinnacle's lines are and our client base to start with. So it is a very interesting thing determining for us where our triggers are, what fits, what doesn't fit, and catering that really to market to make sure that we don't, make an assumption. Something that's in the UK is not going to work in Sweden, isn't going to work in trying to think of another country, France. There we go. So it is important that that we factor in that geo factor. I think for everything, the geography and being able, it kind of goes back to the data. You have to put it into context. And so all of it kind of goes, I'm sounding like I'm selling data now, but all of it has to go with when you pull the information, making assessments based on a context. And so whether it's players behavior, whether it's RG, whether it's, the April 2021 forecast, all of these things, you need to just sort of see where were you, why were you there, and what can you, what's the next step kind of thing.
And Andrew, I wonder if you had anything to add on affordability and how you think
that
it's
brings
changed.
Well, yeah, well, depending on, as ever, you get certain rules out, and then each country will interpret themselves. So we always have to go down to the lowest denominator. I mean, from our voucher point of view, we've got a setting of you can only buy £100 or €100, and you can only spend 50 at a time unless you want to come into the wallet, and then we get to know who you are, and then we can control in different ways and grade it up. Affordability side from ours, we've always been like the commissions of awareness and all the supporting bodies quite like the voucher piece because they feel as if it's a bit more controlled. I mean, it is and it isn't. I mean, it's more controlled in the fact that maybe you've got to go and walk out to the shop to get it. But if you're determined and you've got that issue, then that's where you'd still end up doing it. I think it's the right thing. I think it's a positive move. I am, however, one of those people who really, 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 really wants whichever country's regulator it is, that they would actually engage a bit more. And engage. I remember having one of these summits, and we were talking afterwards about we've got a responsibility to engage with the regulator, and the regulator's got a responsibility to engage with us, but they don't have to, so they don't. So they make it up for themselves, and they're actually ill-informed in many ways. I have to say, in the US, as we're gaining knowledge and space out there, the regulators that we're talking to are amazing in the way they want to engage with us, and that gives me hope for a future there. Affordability is important. Working correctly, vital. Supporting that to make sure that it's in the right place and the vulnerable are not at risk, 100%. How it's being executed in some countries winds me up. It just winds me up that it's like, can we not work together on that? Can we not figure out how best to handle that? And you just get doors shut on you by some regulators. And some regulators will go, yeah, the answer's no. And by the way, you haven't got anybody else you can go and talk to because I'm as high as you can go. That's not helpful. And that's not helpful to the players. I do have a strong wish that we can start to be a little bit better at working together on those things. But it actually brings up another subject for me, Joe, is that this has not just been a year of COVID or rules on that side of things. This has been a year of lack of trust of compliance. A couple of things like the Wirecard issue causing people to have assumptions and working things in what they thought, people having opinions, including some of the regulators. And I don't mean gambling regulators alone, because they've talked about payments. I am talking about financial regulators here as well. I cannot tell you how many people I now have to be filling in compliance forms, none of which are standard. Every question's different, yet they're asking the same question. And I know that the operators have this directly as well. And it's just amazing, the bureaucracy that's going into something that people are being made to do, where it could be a lot easier. I'm not saying we shouldn't have this process at all, but the way the process is being executed is just crazy.
Well, I think it's hysterical.
Isabel, you must have this all the time.
Oh yeah, I have two people. Fortunately, one of my team works very closely with the legal department, and that's the job. But it's funny you should say the Wirecard thing, because one of the things that has definitely come out of it is this backlash of, paperwork and compliance and all of this. And it for me, it's just actually, it's frustrating and time consuming. And yeah, you're exactly right. Same question asked 20 ways and the answer is, yes or no. But the other thing, which is just super funny, is that the Wirecard problem had nothing to do with operations. If you want to crack down, go to where that actual problem occurred. Their operational side, that was not the problem, and I crack up with that, because so many companies, their response to sort of that's what happened there, and so many regulators, their response is, because Wirecard looked after our industry, and we were, they were very large in our industry. There seems to be this assumption that what happened at Wirecard had something to do with us, and it was like, well, no, the fireworks shop blew up, but that doesn't mean that it had anything to do with us. Sorry, I got fireworks on the mind. And I find that the interesting thing with that has been sort of regulators responding in a way that is extremely confusing. And again, I guess understanding context. Maybe I'm big on that, because the response does not actually have anything to do with what they're responding to. And I find that is really funny. But I mean, overall, I think with everybody being home, and I can say for Pinnacle, but I think it also goes across the board everywhere. With the companies where it was work from home, at first we were like, oh, wow, our staff are so productive. Everybody's so much more productive. And then we realized, well, they've got nothing else to do. So maybe they wouldn't be as productive if they were working from home during normal life, when you could go to the party and you could go to the event or whatever and all of that. They'd probably go back to their normal selves. But it wasn't only us. Regulators had that happen. Banks had that happen. Like, everybody had that happen. And you tended to find that people who were maybe in areas where they felt they had the need to justify their existence a little bit. And I'm going to get in trouble for that statement. But you know what I mean? I get the feeling that, I got more sales calls this year than I could deal with. And that was fine. People were trying to, justify their existence on the work from home because they weren't at a show or they weren't at a conference and all of that. But you found that was the same across the board for everybody. Everybody was, in a silo in a way, depending on how well they communicated. And that would have been how well they communicated before the lockdown started, everywhere. And so it's just been interesting because you can't sort of say, oh, well, this has happened and this has happened and this has happened. They're all sort of related in the sense because everybody's trying to, we're still working where there's still a lot of people, especially, sadly to say, a little older than you and me, but still there, going, oh, work from home is a bad thing. We're only doing it because of this. There's still that mentality is still very much, we don't want our teams working from home. So they should be working in the office. And if they are working from home, they have to have added value to that. And I can't imagine that hasn't just gone across the board. And that's, government regulations are, regulatory bodies and are the most old-fashioned when it comes to that. Banking is the most old-fashioned when it comes to that. So changing that mentality, those people have to be under a position and sort of where they feel the need, and we end up with this massive over red taping of everything. I just found this year everything has been red taped 10 times more than it needs to be. That was the longest way to get to that point. Yeah.
No, you're right. But you're right. I mean, I've got people working from home who spend more time trying to understand the question. And you're right. It's a yes or no answer. But it's like, well, hold on. What are you trying to ask me? And you have to really think of the context. And it is that has come out. There's so much more of it. The thing is, the spirit of what's trying to be achieved, I agree with. But I can't get over how it's been executed. And I still think as well that some of the powers that be that are in the regulating world that have got the role has to be there. And I'm actually a big regulated fan, but when it's done properly. So when I first started in the days of UCash with Mark Churnside as the CEO and working with what was then the FSA, they were very collaborative in learning about e-money. And I remember Dominic sitting there going, all right, well, yeah, we've all got to learn how to get this right and make sure it's a good thing, instead of being told what to do without the person at the other end really understanding what it's about. And that's the thing for me. I don't think that's quite the same with the gambling commissions. I think they are more engaged because they're in focus of the industry. But from a payments point of view, in different countries, that it does come across in a very weird way sometimes. That said, they're just operational hurdles to get through. Business is still good. Business is growing. Business is interesting. There's some good guys and not so good guys out there. It's been another year of very interesting maneuvers. Sorry, Isabel, carry on.
No. I was actually just saying, yes, interesting is probably the best word. And you're right in the sense that there's some bad guys out there. It's been interesting as well. No, because it does. It happens. Anytime we have something massive like the Wirecard thing, we end up with sort of all the rocks get turned over. And you have to be so super hyper careful about all the, again, I said, every salesman in the world has contacted us this year. And the problem is there's some gems in there. There's some really good products. There's some really good things that you really want to engage and you want to go forward with. I'm going to quote Richard Connolly by going, you have to look at them all. Because you don't know, you can't just go, oh, I'm not interested in that. You have to go and invest the time in seeing everything that's available. And then you have to sort of determine which ones are the right ones for you and which are the ones that came out from that upturned rock. And this year has also been really, really big on that. Anybody who knows me will tell you I'm a big believer in sort of seeing the whites of your eyes. So investing in Zoom, I agree, I should have done as well. That's been a really hard one because obviously, I can't meet you and shake your hand and say hello to you at a conference. I miss conferences. So it's been an interesting one in that sense. And that's partially, I guess, why there's a lot more red tape, because it's harder to do what we, Andrea, you and I started up when a lot of it was, the shake of their hand, the look in their eye, you speak to somebody else who's doing business with them, you get that. And it's a lot of getting to understand the entire picture of the company. And you can't do that when you're locked in your house in any country, or you're locked in an office, or you can't go and see that person and get the introduction from somebody or whatever and all of that. And that does come in. So you have to fall back on red tape a little bit.
I just wondered
you're right.
Feels like the ripples of the backlash of the Wirecard situation are not yet finished. It feels like they're still sort of in their infancy. Is there a chance that 2021 we could see some of that red tape pulled back or restrained, or is it just going to keep getting piled on?
I have learned in this industry, it doesn't go backwards, Joe. Never goes backwards. It'll always just keep going up. Nobody's ever. I love being wrong for the right reason, and I'd love to be. But no, I don't see it. Not in the short term. I don't see it getting better. I do still quote the fact that you sit and you talk with the local state regulators in the US, not every state, but a lot of them. And because it's new to them, they're keen to understand and work with you, which is really reminiscent of working with the FSA back in Chenshai's days at UCash. But no, this red tape is going to get it's going to get more complicated. The one thing that would make it easier is same question, answer yes or no. The ability for people to be asking the exact same question. And you're right, Isabel. I think I was doing one for FIS, FIS, and WorldPay, and I got 4 forms that all looked pretty much the same, of which they had a whole load of different questions. And you can tell there was different departments that had put this together. Every single question was vital. Every single question was relevant. But they were all written in different forms, and there were duplication after duplication, and you were duty bound to answer every single one. That engaged 4 people from my company. 4 people sat down trying to work all of that out. If we can get uniform versions of the questions, anybody who wants to do that would be cool. But I don't think it will go backwards, Joe. No.
No, it's going to create its own industry.
We'll just get better at it.
We're going to end up with companies who turn around and go, right, our sole job is to do all of your compliance, and that's what we do for a living. So then everybody will just outsource their compliance to some company that ticks boxes, and then we go, right, we're all done, we're good, and it'll lose its value completely.
That is not whoever is aspiring to be in that role.
I couldn't agree more.
That doesn't sound a fun 9 to 5.
I throw it out. A business
They're going
opportunity.
to be pretty strong contracts, Isabel. What's the liability and warranties of the contracts in that service provider? But yeah. Although we have brought in some rather really smart, what I call real people in the compliance side to us this year, which is really, really cool. People who really do know what they're talking about, understand the details. What?
That is actually a shift that I've seen. I've seen a lot of providers this year. Not all. There's still some that, it's 6 months of my life. But there's some suppliers who their compliance teams have shifted. It's interesting. As the red tape has sort of changed and become more and more from the regulators, I have seen that a large amount of the people that are coming in from compliance and the changes that the companies are making on a compliance level are no longer, they don't have that gung-ho approach. They have more of a common sense approach, I think is the best way I can say it. And whether it's because there's learning on how this works, so people are getting more experience. I've seen positive is that the suppliers have definitely got more of a, hey, this is what we need to accomplish. This is why we need to accomplish this. This is the goal. Let's see how we can do this together instead of you didn't tick that box. So that's been a positive.
Yeah. And the track changes in your AML policy document that you only got approved literally 2 weeks ago doesn't have a whole lot of track changes because they like to write it in a different style. You've got the kind of people that go, yep, that makes sense. That's right. That's correct. I would add this in. You don't really need to put that in. That's a real life experience. The kind of people we've just brought in is I couldn't speak highly of them at all. They're just practical, knowledgeable, and helping us all move forward. You couldn't ask for more than that. That's a massive positive in what we've just been complaining about the red tape. That's what we've got, and they do. There's more of them. I agree with you as well.
It hasn't changed across the board, but I've definitely seen that shift in the industry this year.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Which is
that's a good point.
Because it's still so bad. It's still so painful. That is the wrong word. Painful.
I tell you what, it's still trying to keep up, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a keeping up that makes me. That's why we've had to employ more. It's a keeping up of. Okay, I'm sorry. What was it they want in Italy now? Okay. Do we have to change the product for that? Okay. What they want what in Germany? Okay. I mean, that hasn't changed. That's been at that level for quite a while. But it's just making sure on a constant basis that you're in the right lane at the right pace and know when to stop and when to start. It is very complex, but it's all there for a good reason. It's keeping up with it.
Yeah.
But business continues to grow and grow. Some, I can say this, you wouldn't necessarily say it, Isabel, but I think some of my counterparts in the industry of payments and local payments, some are doing a bloody great job, excuse my swearing, doing an amazing job. Some I feel are letting the side down, and some are really great new things coming along. So from a payments provider point of view, I'm on the APM bit, I'm on the local payment piece. It's an interesting place that we're in right now. I urge all of my co-suppliers to use the ears and be polite. I really do. And I urge them all to be part of a joint effort in our industry. I appreciate that isn't really happening. But that's a big message. if I was going to do like, that, Queen's speech about what to do next year, be polite, listen. And that's something that I really think there's some of my partners they're not partners, but in my part of the focused industry that are letting the APMs down. And then it's just not right. And just be a little bit more respectful for everybody, be it a regulator, be it an operator, be it a distributor who's issuing, or be it your competitor. I think we should really be a little bit better towards each other. Isabel knows exactly what I'm talking about, but we really need to do it because we're all here together to try and help the customer, and we can just be a little bit more polite, I think, to each other.
We should end on that note, but I did want to get your advice on something else. You both seem like work from home advocates, and I'm an in the closet work from home advocate. Secretly, I love it. I think it's brilliant. I think you work better, but there are certain struggles, and it is a completely different beast. Did you have any tips on working from home next year? Because it looks like we're going to be for the near future next year as well. Andrea, so let's start with you on that one.
I'm very much about a balanced approach, by the way. If we can be in the office, then we try to encourage people to safely be together. It is a straightforward communication piece. We've just gone through an exercise of reworking our core values about what we stand for, and how one of the strongest parts of that is our own communication. And I mean, everybody being informed without taking them down a downward spiral of all the detail. But it is about being honest with each other and your colleagues. If I can't get this done, I don't know how to do this, can you help me? Has become a massive assistance to us and people helping each other. I really don't want a post-COVID work from home only basis. It's got to be balanced. A bit like you've got to get to the conferences. I mean, I've got a sales guy in my team who's like a caged animal, bless him. He needs to be allowed out. He's been caged up for so long, and his main job is getting out there and talking to people. And he can't possibly work from home for a long time. But it is about caring for that different position in somebody's mindset. I've always been open and tried to understand emotional intelligence and mental well-being, but I've become more so this year, watching and making sure people have what they need. And sometimes having what they need in the COVID world is, if your kid is giving you grief, put work down and go and look after your child. Because actually, we've got a big motto in our business: family first. Because you will get round to doing what you need to do. Nothing can be that important. And if it's absolutely urgent, pass the baton on to somebody else. Go and be with your family. Because the mental well-being and being able to have your life is absolutely vital. And luckily, we've got through it with nobody's been bruised, nobody's been hurt, nobody's thrown anything at the camera of the machine. So it is about compassion for each other, massive compassion for different roles. The good old sales and marketing and operations journey has really started to become more collaborative than it ever has, because you're distant. I better get off my pedestal, Isabel.
It's great. I'm like, damn, my feedback wasn't going to be so deep. For me, it's a bit different, because we've kind of always had, I mean, my teams are, over the years, my teams have been over 5 different countries and offices in different time zones and everything else. So I've always had to have the ability to adapt. I was very lucky. I have an office set up at home because, at a certain point in time, I was having to have meetings with my team at 10 o'clock at night because they were in a different time zone. And it just felt nicer to be able to just go into my office and do that at home. That's worked out really well for me. From that perspective, I think Andrea is completely correct. It's balanced. There's some people who hate it. There's some people who really feel that they're accomplishing a lot more and they really like that comfort of work from home. It's also allowed us to have a real big difference on distance working. So, I don't need my team to be in the office in another country. I don't know where you're physically are. If you want to be at home, if you want to be in the office, as long as you get your work done, I'm happy with it. Again, it does allow people to shift their life to fit their business as well. I think, though, one of the things, and it's a really simple one, but my boss actually taught me this year, and I didn't do in past, was the importance of a camera. I didn't like, being on the camera. I felt it was intrusive and whatever. And he forced us to have meetings on camera. And now I force my team to have meetings on camera. And pretty much as often as possible, I have meetings on camera. And that brings the personalization back. It really makes a huge difference if you're talking to somebody and you can see them. And I now know what all of my team's dogs look like. And cats and kids and uncles and and that's okay, because that keeps it human. You don't have the human contact with them. So actually somebody walking through and going in the background and running off, it keeps it human. It's not a bad thing. And I think that's the whole thing, that the work from home.
I'll give you one tip though.
Yeah.
I'd give you one tip that I was taught. Where I can, I switch the visibility of seeing myself. I switch off if I can.
Yeah, I can't figure out how to do
I'm
it
on video,
this.
but if I can, I mean Zoom. No, on here you can't do it. On Zoom, well, you might be able to. I just can't see it. But on Zoom, you can switch your view off. Otherwise, you're constantly looking at. Oh my God! It's like I can see my sports towel on top of my spin bike behind me.
I can't even make out that you've got a spin bike behind you.
Yeah.
So
I interrupted you.
Because I don't know what they look like.
Oh yeah, I've got a spin bike. How's the pool?
The pool is good. The pool deck, I went and bought pool deck chairs yesterday. Lime green deck chairs. They're awesome. That is how I'm spending Christmas Day.
Oh, nice. That is beautiful.
Oh my gosh, how fantastic.
Well, you're welcome to have a site visit anytime you like.
It sounds good.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to do that soon.
As long as you like dogs, you're welcome at my house.
Isabel, I've got to ask you.
I've got two here sleeping by my side. I love dogs.
I've got to ask you both, actually. You are definitely the type of dog owners that are getting the dog a Christmas present, right?
My dogs behaved so badly yesterday that they're getting a lump of coal.
Oh.
I had 5 dogs in the main road, and I had traffic stopped. I was standing like this. People were jumping out of the cars, grabbing dogs. I had chaos. I had the workout of my life yesterday. So no gifts for the dogs.
On the naughty list.
Yep. I wish somebody videotaped it, though. It must have been hysterical to see.
Wow. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Andrea, what are your dogs?
Mine will get their presents. They have. Well, they have. Each have a Waitrose dog cracker, which they can rip apart, and in there are treats that are okay to eat to make sure that we're not with grain and all that. And I also give them every year. It's an antler that's been cut in half. The antlers are shed, and they're very good for the dog. So they get a small antler as well to eat. Other than that, they will have to put on their Christmas jumper for the annual Christmas photo, and they look at me as if to say, "Get this off me." They're French bulldogs. They're supposed to like it, but they won't. And then they'll just be asleep in front of the fire. But yeah, of course I'm going to buy them presents. Of course I am. They don't know it's Christmas, but it's good for me as the owner. I wouldn't be without them.
I'm going to be home all day with them. They're happy.
Sadly, they don't know how to buy presents for us. Yeah.
Yeah, no, with 5 of them, if I get anything, it just causes chaos. So I kind of stick to a standard routine with them. That's why the truth
Oh
is.
God.
Everything from a Dachshund to a
Right.
Rottweiler and in
Yeah,
between.
you have to.
Yeah. No, I adopted a new one last
Wow. Wow.
Wow, yeah. In the
Amazing.
new year, we'll pencil in the payment and compliance dog episode for the new year, and it'll just be a free for all. We'll
Oh, I can't wait for bring your dog to work day. That would be hysterical. I don't think it's going to happen at Pinnacle, but yeah.
Guys, I wish you both.
That's funny. Well, they can all be sat next to the pool.
Exactly.
Well, brilliant. I'm conscious I don't want to keep you for too long. We've run a little bit over time, but yeah, thank you ever so much, and I wish you both and everyone watching the best Christmas and a much better New Year as well.